Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, and Merry Christmas, or Happy Holidays. And I know Hanukkah passed, I miss it, I'm sorry, but also Happy Hanukkah. But of course, have a Happy New Year. Now, as we're about to enter 2019, we're getting that much closer to spring training, and of course, they wrapped up the winter meetings in Las Vegas. Now, the last episode, I said the winter meetings were in California. Actually, they were in Vegas. Sorry about that. GM Brian Cashman has been stuffing the Yankees stocking with some new players. So we'll get into all of that, as well as look at the 2019 Hall of Fame vote, which is just around the corner. And speaking of 2019, that'll be the 25th anniversary of the 1994 Yankee team. What's so special about that? Well, that's the year they went on strike. And a lot of things we should reminisce about. There were some great players, some great accomplishments. So we'll look back at that. So let's get it started. Now, the big move highlighted by bringing in James Paxton in a trade from the Seattle Mariners. No one really saw this coming. Everyone figured they'd do a free agent such as Patrick Corbin or maybe the Dallas Keuchel or Nathan Eovaldi. But no, kind of under the radar the way Cashman operates. He picked up James Paxton in a trade for Justice Sheffield. Now, at first, I was like a little bummed out because, you know, when you have a young pitcher such as Justice Sheffield, you want him to come through the system, sort of like Luis Severino did. But you got to realize, look, if you want to get great talent, you have to give up good talent. And Sheffield, 22 years old, could be great, could pan out. We don't know where he's going to go. And at least with Paxton, you know, you got a guy, a veteran, only 30 years old. He's still young, under control. He's one of the budding young pitchers of the league. And I think, you know, this stock is only going to rise. And he's a guy, he's kind of, you know, on a borderline all-star type. And again, in terms of a number 2 starter for the Yankees, perfect, ideal. And again, a left-hander for Yankee Stadium. That's what you want. Great move by Cashman. And the Yankees were looking at free agent left-hander Patrick Corbin from the Diamondbacks, but he ended up signing with the Nats for $140 million, and the Yankees felt, the price tag was a little too high for him on that. And the fact that they made the Paxton deal, I think they kind of took Corbin out of the picture. And we'll see where it goes in the long term. Again, with Paxton, you're really not paying him much money at all, and you still have him under control for a few years. So, again, money-wise, a great move by Cashman. And Nathan Eovaldi, who, you know, former Yankee who came back with the Red Sox last year and actually pretty much knocked the Yankees out of a playoff as both a starter and coming out of the bullpen, helped them win the World Series, very integral, and I guess they rewarded him, they like him. 4 years, $68 million deal. Now the Yankees are probably kicking the tires on him a little bit, but I don't think they're going to go a long-term commitment on a 4-year deal for a guy who had not 1 but 2 Tommy John surgeries already. And the Yankees will be seeing a lot more Charlie Morton, used to pitch for the Houston Astros, signed recently by Tampa. Kind of a, you know, mixed play. Sometimes he starts, sometimes he comes out of the bullpen. Hurt the Yankees a little bit, of course, in the 2017 season. Well, the Yankees will get their revenge, so hopefully when he comes up here in the Bronx or when they go down to Tampa, they get their revenge and beat the hell out of him. And Paxton, no, he has a little injury history off and on, but he says he feels great. He actually lost 10 pounds in this offseason. And again, with Sheffield, maybe they didn't evaluate it as good that he would, you know, be as good as Severino. I think if they did evaluate him internally that good, then maybe they wouldn't have given away. So I have faith in the system, and I just think this is a great pickup. And now you look at this Yankee rotation, which is started at the top of Severino. Paxton, again, is a guy, ideal number 2 guy you slip in there. Tanaka, still a pretty damn good pitcher. As we know, a very good postseason pitcher as your number 3. Now Jay Happ also looks like, you know, he's not confirmed yet, but rumors are that they are going to bring him back. Right now it looks like a 2-year deal, which is fine for the Yankees, with an option for a 3rd. Now, he originally put out there that he wanted a 3-year deal, and no teams are really, you know, going at him. I mean, he is 35 years old. But for the Yankees, I think on a 2-year deal for him, it makes total sense. You know, he's not one of those guys that like has a herky-jerky motion or like throws like he's trying to put the ball through the back of the, you know, backstop. The ball comes smooth out of his hands, so I can see him being an effective pitcher for the next 2 seasons. And usually he only goes about 5 2/3, 6 innings. Again, so not a lot of stress on the arm. So again, if that Happ deal is confirmed, that's also great for the Yankees. And of course, you know, they re-signed CC. So now you're going to have 3 lefties, which I can't remember the last time the Yankees had that in the starting rotation. And again, the rotation balanced out. Severino, Paxton, Tanaka, Happ, CC, which is way better than they had the start of last season. And again, a team that, you know, won 100 games, not too shabby. But now you're going to have, at least at the start of the season, a much better rotation. Now, Cashman still needs to throw some logs onto the bullpen fireplace. And some of the names thrown out there, of course, is Zach Britton and David Robinson, the former Yankees who declared free agency. They're still floating out there, as well as Andrew Miller, the former Yankee they had, but traded to Cleveland when they started dumping everyone off in 2016. Now, of the 3 of them, stuff-wise, Andrew Miller is probably the most ferocious pitcher out there. But past couple seasons, he's been very injury-prone. Zach Britton, who the Yankees had last season, was decent, good points, bad points, but it seems like he wants to be a closer again and is going to command big money. So I just don't think they're going to commit to that. So the only one that kind of makes sense is David Robinson. Again, a little on the older side, but he's been here for a while. He knows the score, he knows the game, he knows the stadium, he knows the mound, and he stays rather healthy. You don't really see him getting hurt that much. So if you can invest money in him, you don't have to worry about him being on the DL every 2 weeks. Whereas Miller, probably the best pitcher of all of them, it seems like he's hurt like every other week for the Indians. So they might bring him in Miller, but overall, stuff-wise, I'd rather have Robinson. Now, the Seattle Mariners were dangling Robinson Cano out there. Rumor was that he wanted to return to New York, and I don't blame him. I mean, you'd have to pay me $220 million to want to go live in Seattle. I guess he got tired out there, and he wanted to get back, around here where baseball's kind of a little more relevant. So they would dangle him out here. The deal would make sense for the Yankees. I don't know why you would want to bring him in here, take up all the salary, and have an aging player in a crowded infield already. But, I have to hand it. They traded him with the Mets, and it was actually a good deal for the Mets. It made a lot of sense for the Mets. Brody Van Wagenen, the new GM, former agent, now GM for the Mets, made a deal for Cano, as well as probably one of the best closers in baseball, Edwin Diaz, who's making like peanuts. So you bring Cano and Diaz in, and he gets rid of the contracts of Jay Bruce and Schwarzak in the bullpen. Two guys have just been bust and disaster and hurt, and it's not good anymore. So, guys, gotta say, good deal for the Mets. Did not make sense for the Yankees. And the reason it didn't make sense for the Yankees is that you have a crowded infield situation as it is. You got Torres and you got Andujar, and I know Didi's on the DL, and you could shift some guys around, but Didi's going to come back at some point. It's already crowded. This didn't make sense bringing Cano in. As well as, look, you got to look at it this way. You got the best he is out of Cano offensively. Didn't have to pay him much, and then he ships out of town. Why would you want to bring that back and kind of like get a, he's still a good player, but now you're paying him the big bucks. You didn't pay him. The whole idea is to get the best out of someone and then let him cash out somewhere else. So why would you want to bring that in again when now you have to pay him again? So it's almost like, stepping on your foot twice. This doesn't make sense for the Yankees. And plus, if you're going to spend money, might as well spend it on like a younger guy. I don't know, like Manny Machado, who's only 25 years old. Now, there were rumors of a possible 3-team deal involving the Yankees, the Marlins, and the Mets, sending Noah Syndergaard here to the Bronx, which would have been kind of interesting. The Yankees sending a prospect, possibly Gary Sanchez, down to Miami, and then Miami sending J.L. Realmuto up to the Mets, so the Mets need a catcher. Since then, the rumors have taken up steam, and I really don't want that to happen. Not that I don't think Syndergaard would be, successful here. Actually, he might not be, because they'd probably make him cut his golden hair, and sort of like Samson or Thor, if he cut his hair, he would lose all his powers. But more seriously, I just don't want to give a chip up like Sanchez. I just have a lot of faith in him. I think he's going to do great, and you have him under control for a couple more years. Why give up on that? Syndergaard in a year or two, you're going to have to pay him like a ton of money. So deal doesn't make sense. And again, it looks like it's just not going to happen, and I'm kind of thankful it doesn't, if it doesn't happen. And with Sanchez, he had his off-season surgery, and the Yankees still say he's on track for opening day, so that's good news. And I just think he's going to have a bounce-back season. I just think, he was hurt last year. That's probably why his numbers were down and the power is down. I think he'll have a much more productive season, and it'll be even more reason why you'd want to keep him and not give him away in a trade. And let's just say you do a straight-up deal with the Marlins for Realmuto. I know Realmuto's probably better defensively. He's more polished overall, but again, not too soon you're gonna have to pay the guy. Sanchez, you still have him under control for quite a number of years. So Cano, 36 years old, that's not really wanting to invest a lot of money, but Manny Machado, 25, well, that's where you do want to put the big bucks to. Now, Cashman confirmed that they have been in touch with the Machado camp. Looks like talks are underway, so maybe he becomes a Yankee. We'll see. Now, he said there was no interest in Harper, so that one's not happening. And again, I still don't think he would have been a good fit here anyway, even though the Yankees do need a left-handed bat. But still, looks like they are more interested in Machado for whatever reason. I just don't see the need for him. I mean, it's really building upon a strength you already have, right-handed power hitting. The Yankees have plenty of that maybe even too much of it as it is, with Judge and with Stanton and with Sanchez and with Torres. They're very right-handed, Andujar as well, very right-handed power team. So now you add another guy who's going to do the same. So I don't think it makes sense that way. Again, the guy's a great player. If you bring him in, I'm not going to complain, but it just doesn't make sense because there's no spot for him. And plus, again, you have Didi coming back in, around July. So where are you going to put everyone? So that means maybe you're going to have to deal Andujar, or maybe you have to deal Didi. And I just don't want to see that happening. I just think this, 2017 Yankee team that, kind of all came together and, kind of came up sort of like the 96 Yankees. I don't think I want to break up that chemistry. This is a good camaraderie there. And I feel bringing in Machado is almost like when the Yankees bought A-Rod in 2004. Again, yeah, you're adding a great player to a great team, but you're kind of messing up with the makeup, and I just don't think the Yankees should do that. And I think it's just good to keep this young core team intact. And the hard third, Didi at shortstop, Torres at second, and Bird at first, and of course Gary Sanchez at catcher. So you have this homegrown Yankee infield, and I think this is very powerful. They're all great players. They all seem to get along. And I hate to bring a guy Machado in just to break that up. Yeah, he's probably a better player than Andujar, but maybe Andujar's only 23, 24. Maybe Andujar becomes a Machado. So I would say hold on to him. And you could make the case that, getting Stanton last year was sort of an embarrassment of riches, but it's a totally different situation. You're bringing Stanton in, you're not really taking anyone's job because you pretty much knew he was going to be a DH. And a little right fielder to give Judge a few days off. But the difference with Machado is that when you bring him in, you're costing a job for either Didi or Andujar. See, Stanton really do that last year. He just kind of came in and took the DH spot, which no one really had, and fine, all systems go. And plus, you just really made a trade for him. You didn't have to make a big free agency splash, and you got Miami to pick up some of his contract. With Machado, you're going to have to pay him the whole enchilada, as well as, again, he's going to cost a job, whether it's Andujar's at third base or costing Didi's job at shortstop. One of the baby bombers the Yankees did have to part ways with is Ronald Torreyes. Infielder, kind of a scrappy player. He could play all positions, a singles hitter, but unfortunately, there's really no room for him now. He was a fan favorite, a clubhouse favorite. A lot of people are bummed out, but again, there's just really not enough at bats for him to go around. So the Yankees did cut him from the roster, but luckily the Minnesota Twins did pick him up, so he'll get a new opportunity with Minnesota, possibly as a starter. And, you can only wish him the best of fortunes. And other sad news, Joan Steinbrenner, the wife of the great Yankee owner George Steinbrenner, passed away at the age of 83. Bummer. And with a year under his belt, Boone should now have a better sense of the managerial map. Overall, if you get 100 wins in your first season, can't complain too much about that. Now, some things you can nitpick, using a guy too much, or substituting a play where he didn't, or giving a player a day off when he didn't really need it. But overall, he's doing a good job, and he's going to be better for the Yankees. Just, getting his feet wet, getting more experience. I don't know if that's going to make the Yankees win 110 games, but they should be right there when the season starts. And again, they're going to have a better starting rotation, so you don't have to worry about too much, making crazy bullpen moves or having to bring a guy in the fourth inning. They'll happen time to time. Someone's going to have a bad start, or CC will just have a clunker here and there. It's going to happen, but it should be a little easier, Boone, when you have a good starting rotation. You can just kind of kick back, and you don't even have to make those key, crucial decisions until maybe, the 6th, 7th inning. And things have changed a little bit on the managerial front. Some longtime managers, such as Mike Schoch in the Angels, he's gone, replaced by Brad Ausmus. And Buck Showalter, been with the Orioles for a number of years, kind of the thorn in the Yankees side. He's also out after a miserable 2018 season. They still haven't hired the manager yet. And Paul Molitor, fan favorite, great player for the Twins, managing them for a while, but he's gone nowhere with them lately, and he's ousted as well. On January 22nd, the Baseball Writers Association of America will vote on the 2019 class of players headed up to Cooperstown this summer. And for the first time on the ballot, two Yankees you're probably familiar with, Mariano Rivera and Andy Pettitte. We'll get into both players, why I think one is, it's a no-brainer, and the other one might be close, but I don't think he's going to make it. And for the 6th year, Mike Mussina is also eligible. Kind of got into that last season, but I'll just refresh you on some of the stats why I think he qualifies. An 18-year career, one of the more dominant pitchers of the 90s and early 2000s, 7-time Gold Glove winner, 5-time All-Star. It's actually an easy case to make. He ranks 19th with over 2,800 strikeouts, only 200 shy of the Golden 3,000. He's 33 all-time in wins with 270 and 33 all-time in games started with 535. And to boot, he's had 17 years of 10 or more wins. Now, he has a lifetime record of 270 wins versus 153 losses. That means he's over 100 wins over the 500 mark, which every other pitcher in that situation is in the Hall of Fame, except Roger Clemens, who's right now not in the Hall of Fame for steroid reasons. And overall, you look at that time period, you had Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez. Mike Mussina was in that group of the dominant pitchers of that era. So let's examine why the baseball writers have been leaving him out, and then maybe we can make the case of looking at those numbers and turn it to why he should be in. Now, one of the knocks against Mussina's career is that he never won the Cy Young Award, which is kind of important for a Hall of Fame pitcher. Another knock against him is his lifetime ERA, 3.68, which is kind of high. But if you examine the era he pitched in, the 90s, the early 2000s, he pitched in the height, the best of the steroid era. He's had steroid users all over the place, and he's pitching through it and putting up some pretty damn good numbers. So you do have to take that in consideration. And his final year was 2008. Well, the Mitchell report, when this, baseball finally started getting serious about this, was 2008. So again, he pitched his entire career against a lot of these Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire types who would probably juice him left and right. So it's worth examining. And then just take 3 of his seasons that really kind of hurt his ERA. 2007, 5.15. It's kind of an injury-plagued season with him. Also, he kind of lost his starting job a little bit. He was trying to find and reinvent himself. It was kind of a tough period for him. And it was also 2 seasons back-to-back, 04 and 05, in which he had a 4.59 and a 4.41 ERA respectively. Again, those 2 seasons, a lot of groin and hamstring. And I know it's not an excuse, but you really just take those 3 seasons aside, his lifetime ERA is much, much lower. Now, in addition to the Baseball Writers Association of America, there's another group who can also get players in. It's called the Veterans Committee. It's basically a conglomerate of ex-Hall of Famers, well, the current Hall of Famers, but ex-players, current Hall of Famers, executives, other people around baseball, to sort of like, I don't say combat the writers, but sort of give their version of who they think should be in the Hall of Fame. And they already put 2 names in. Harold Baines, kind of a career DH type of guy. I just feel he's not great. He's a very good player, as well as Lee Smith. Again, a very good closer over a long period of time, but not super great. Kind of guys who stuck around the game for a long time, compiled stats. But of course, this Veterans Committee, they always probably feel that, there's a lot of players who the writers, shafted and didn't get in, and it's like they try to justify. They put people in like Bill Mazeroski, who hit that big home run against the 1960 Yankees. Guys who are good players, but not great, but still, they get their vote, they get their say. So far, they put Harold Baines and Lee Smith in, but again, the January 22nd vote, that's the big one. That's really the one that counts. And of course, that's the one where you're going to see, of course, probably Mariano go in and some other players such as Roy Halladay. Now, in 2018, Mike Mussina got 63.5% of the vote. Now, you need 75% of the writers' vote to get into the Hall of Fame. So gradually, Mussina's been climbing there. And again, I think either this year or next year, he'll finally get in because he has been showing an increase. Mariano should get like 90 to 100%. He really should get a unanimous vote. There's some voters who sometimes just feel, well, I'm not going to put a bullpen guy in the Hall of Fame that quickly. Or some people just feel like some writers just have these quirks about them where they just won't put a player in on their first year eligibility. They put them in the second. Why they do this, who knows? It's just these writers have these different quirks. But Mariano is just so great at what he did for so long that I just, if he doesn't get the unanimous, fine. But if he doesn't get 90% or over, it would be like almost a tragedy. Mussina will probably gradually get in there, and this Pettitte, I don't think he'll get any votes at all, frankly. I mean, the Pettitte's the more interesting one to analyze because, again, I just think Mariano's a lock. But if you look at Pettitte, he had a very great career, very distinguished career, but whatever numbers he has, I just don't think, regardless, they're going to, vote him in, mainly because the whole HGH thing, and of course, we know how these writers have been looking at these, what they call the steroid players. Now, Pettitte seems to be a good guy of them, and it doesn't seem like he really is, he used HGH to sort of recoup, and it wasn't one of those situations like Barry Bonds where he was using it to like increase muscle mass and hit more home runs and throw fast and throw harder. Yet that, with all that in mind, he still used PEDs. It's still going to be an issue, and there were even some players like Mike Piazza, who there's been whispers about, but nothing really proven, so they let him in. But of course, the 2 biggest names on that sort of user list has been Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, and the writers have still refused to put them in, even though, yes, they probably cheated, they used stuff, but I don't think, they were still just amazing superstar players for like 2 decades. You got to put them in. So the fact that they're not going to put those guys in just tells me, no matter what stats or what numbers you look at with Pettitte, that they'll put them in either as well. Now, for a postseason game, there's probably no one else on earth I'd want to start that game more than Andy Pettitte. Clutch postseason performer, 19 career wins in the postseason, but even with that and all the 5 championships with the Yankees and all that stuff, still not enough to put him in because you just look at his regular season numbers, and we'll get into them. There's just no clear dominance where you would go say, you know what, this is one of the best pitches of this decade, and to be a Hall of Famer, you got to be like the best of the best. And Pettitte was very good, almost possibly great, but not Hall of Fame quality, and I'll explain why. Pettitte had 19 career postseason wins, of course with the 5 championships, but they look at that, the writers, but it's more about your regular season. So, and Pettitte, some good numbers there too. 256 career wins, as well as a lifetime ERA of 3.85. Again, not too shabby after all, and again, kind of pitching the same steroid era as Mussina did, and that's kind of the case I made that, yeah, Mussina's ERA is kind of high, but and so is Pettitte. But look at the era they pitched in. The 90s, early 2000s, again, that's when steroid use was on high. So offensive numbers were all over the place. Home runs were getting hit all the ballpark. So you have to give them a little leeway with that. But the problem with Pettitte, mainly, he had so many seasons. He had 9 seasons where he had an ERA going into the 4s. And Mussina only had like maybe 3 or 4, one of the 5s. And also another problem with Pettitte, he only had one 20-win season. That was 1996, where he won 21 games, as well as he's no Cy Young awards. I mean, you kind of need, some 20-win seasons. You also need maybe at least one Cy Young award. Pettitte doesn't really have any of that. Now, 1996, I think it was a year that Pettitte should have won the Cy Young award. He was beat out by Pat Henkin of the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, that really made no sense. I think a lot of it had to do with, they figure, all right, the 96 Yankees, they won their championship. And there's sometimes writers or judges, they just there's a little bias against the Yankees with certain things. I guess at the time they figure, the Yankees have got this millions of dollars and they bought a championship, all this stuff. So, well, let's give the Cy Young to Pat Henkin in Toronto, where no one's really going to care. Should have went to Pettitte. Now, let's say Pettitte did get that 1996 Cy Young award. Does that really make him a Hall of Famer? Probably not, so it doesn't make a difference anyway. And, they did the same thing with, Jeter in 2006. He was definitely the MVP of the league, but no, they gave it to Joe Mauer in Minnesota. Well, let's let those people happy. So, it doesn't make a difference either way. And so if you look at the ERA, you look at the lack of 20-win seasons from Pettitte, you look at no Cy Young award, it's really hard. You can't really put him in. And Pettitte's 256 career wins is lower than Mussina's 270, and Pettitte's lifetime ERA is also higher than Mike Mussina. So, if Mussina's not getting in, Pettitte's definitely not getting in. So we know the Don Mattingly prayer is not going to happen. Sorry, Donnie. No Andy Pettitte, unfortunately. Maybe Mike Mussina, again, 63.5%, growing, which is higher than both Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds at this point, so got a shot there. But one I think we could be very sure of is, of course, Mariano Rivera. Distinguished 19-year career, 13-time All-Stars, 652 career saves, which right now is the most for any closer in baseball history, as well as a lifetime ERA of 2.21, and of course the postseason stats, which really makes him stand out. I'll get into that as well. This is really a no-brainer here. Again, I think he should get 100% of the votes, but he'll probably end up over 90, which is fine as long as you get in. First ballot Hall of Famer, a classy guy, defined the role, and yes, there were closers before him, such as Rollie Fingers and Sparky Lyle and Goose Gossage and Lee Smith and Dennis Eckersley. But in terms of the closer role, I mean, he kind of defined it for this generation. And in terms of where you see bullpens being used now, that was kind of set up. A lot of people want to give credit to Tony La Russa and where he used Eckersley in the bullpen of the 80s with the Oakland A's, but really it was the Joe Torre, the late 90s teams that really defined having a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, a specialist, and of course bringing a Mo. And when it came to the postseason, Mariano Rivera, you could just slot him there for 2 innings, 8th and 9th inning. He would just get, breeze right through it and help get, 5 championships for the World Series for the Yankees. So we'll get into all the stats with Mo, but really, in terms of Hall of Fame, you got to go to Mo. But it's the postseason that made Mariano a mythical legend. A lifetime ERA of less than 1, 0.70. It means in terms of his postseason career, ERA is less than 1. It's just unbelievable. Now, 16 of his 19 years, he did pitch in the postseason for the Yankees. Now, helps being on the Yankees, so you get into the postseason. But 32 different series, and you're facing the best of the best competition. Yet with that in mind, an ERA less than 1. It's unimaginable. And a lot of writers might feel that, well, he's a relief pitcher. Even though he's very great, he's not a starter. But look, you can't blame him for the generation he pitched in. He pitched in this generation where they used bullpens and the specialists and stuff like that. And for what he did as a closer, again, he was the best in the game at the time, head and shoulders above others, as well as they already put in Trevor Hoffman, who has less career saves with 601. And again, in terms of postseason, Hoffman was a disaster. Again, great regular season closer. Postseason, a disaster. In fact, the Yankees roughed him up in the '98 World Series. So I just think, you don't have to, hold your breath at Mariano. He's just going to get in. It's so easy. The numbers make sense, and you cannot make an argument against him. So look forward to Mariano Rivera being voted into the 2019 Hall of Fame class. And in terms of the other Yankees there, I think he has some good company. But congratulations, Mo. So let's go back in time, 1994. Well, you say, what's so special about that year? Well, that's the year baseball went on strike. And I feel that baseball doesn't want to talk about it, and frankly, the Yankees don't want to talk about it. But it's kind of a shame, because if you look at that Yankee team from 25 years ago, there was something there. Now, when they did go on strike in August 12, 1994, the Yankees were up 6.5 games in the AL East. I'm not saying they were world beaters, but there was a very good likely chance that they were headed to the postseason. And it's just a shame they were able to finish the deal. So we'll look back at the team, look at some of the accolades, some of the players who, again, would maybe go on to be part of the 96 Yankee team. And I know even people give credit that, 95 was when the Yankees really got their rebirth, back in the playoffs for the first time since 1981. But really it's that 94 team that sort of maybe things started to come together. You started to have some players there. You had a little momentum. And then once you added the core 4 players such as Jeter and Pettitte and Mariano, that's when they became a championship team. But it all started in 1994. Ironically enough, 1994 was the year that baseball introduced the wild card. Problem was they weren't able to use it until the year later because they went on strike. It used to be East versus West in each league, and they whittled down till they get to the World Series. Well, I guess maybe to create more fan interest, have more teams involved, they created 3 divisions and have a team that couldn't qualify in those divisions with the best record would be the wild card team. So you had East, West, Central, and again, the team to do that for the first year, a year later, 1995, was the New York Yankees. And the Yankees getting to the postseason in 1994 would have been great for the city of New York. Now, earlier in the year, you had the Knicks getting to the finals. Unfortunately, they lost to the Houston Rockets, but at least they got there and had a nice postseason run to get everyone excited. Now, the Rangers got to the Stanley Cup finals and were able to beat the Vancouver Canucks, so some celebration there. And it would have been great to close out the year to have a nice Yankee run in October, but it wasn't to be. The previous year, 1993, that's when the Yankees, started to take shape. They traded for Wade Boggs from Boston. They got Paul O'Neill from Cincinnati. Of course, you had Don Mattingly there, even though injuries started to plague, he was still a relevant bat. And of course, you were having the emergence of Bernie Williams. And still managed by Buck Showalter in 1994, they took it to another level. And when they stopped play due to the strike, they had a record of 70-43. Not too bad. Anchored by Jimmy Key, who the Yankees got from the Toronto Blue Jays, and would go on to be part of the 1996 World Championship Yankees, followed by Jim Abbott, the one-handed pitcher who threw a no-hitter the year before, Scott Kamenicki, Miguelito Pelez. They started the year for Bobby Ojeda, the former Met, but they ended up cutting him and then picked up Terry Mulholland. Again, not the greatest rotation in the world, but good enough to be 6.5 games up in the AL East at the time the strike started. So let's look at some of the players' accolades. Jimmy Key is a starting pitcher. Ended up leading the majors with 17 wins. Paul O'Neill, I guess due to this season being cut short, wins the batting title with a .359 batting average. And Wade Boggs, well, not too far behind with a .342 batting average, but not as good as .359. And want to get some awards? How about Gold Gloves? Wade Boggs at third, Don Mattingly at first. And people were bummed out that they went on strike, mainly because of Don Mattingly, fan favorite. Been with the Yankees for a long time and no postseason history, no postseason run. They felt 94, there was going to be a shot. Then they go on strike, and I was like, oh, there goes his chance. Because he didn't know when the strike was going to, be called off. Could have been another year, could have been 2 years, and then maybe by the time Mattingly would have had to retire. But luckily, again, he did get a shot in 1995, hitting a home run in that series against Seattle, but unfortunately, the Yankees blew a 2-0 lead, and that's where Steinbrenner got so upset that he fired Buck Showalter and hired Joe Torre, and then great things would come after that. So the 1994 Yankees had a good season. Some players put up some good numbers and got some awards, but unfortunately, there was no playoffs for them, or baseball in general, because of the strike. But one of the bright spots was that Phil Rizzuto, a longtime Yankee of the 50s, 60s era, was inducted into Baseball Hall of Fame. And 25 years later, so should Mo.